Great. So today we're going to first learn how to compare maps in Redistricting You, a mapping tool that was created with the goal of facilitating easy comparisons of maps. And you are in luck today because we have Steven Romalewski, the leader of the team at the CUNY Mapping Service that created Redistricting You, here with us to show off its many features. Then I'm going to jump back in to show you how you can use Dave's Redistricting app to compare maps. And we'll end with a quick note on where you can find maps now that you know how to compare them. And as we noted in the advertisement, we will stay on another 15 minutes after the 30-minute training for any questions you might have. You can also put questions in the chat if you'd like. My colleague Lily is here to help answer any questions that she can. Anything else she will flag for us during that 15 minutes post-training. But for now, I'm pleased to hand things over to Steven to showcase how Redistricting You enables easy comparison of maps.
Great, thank you very much. So my team at the City University of New York Graduate Center, we develop online interactive mapping applications and other GIS projects for a whole variety of purposes and resources. If you were involved in the 2020 census, you may have been familiar with the Census 2020 Hard to Count map that we developed. And after that, we decided we thought it would be helpful to provide some interactive mapping tools around redistricting. And what we wanted to do was, there are a lot of amazing tools out there like Dave's Redistricting app that make it easy to analyze districts and really provide helpful tools for experts in the field or people that are very involved in the redistricting, campaigns. But we were thinking more broadly. We wanted to make it very easy for people that may not even know redistricting is happening, or they might know that redistricting is going on, but they think of it as like a backroom deal and they're cynical and they don't want to get involved. We wanted to make it easy for them to learn about redistricting, because even though they might not think redistricting applies to them, redistricting affects everyone. That's why we call our project Redistricting You. So if you could switch to the next slide. And so what we did is this link here actually goes to an early version of the map that we created that showed the prior congressional state legislative districts and how they might need to change in terms of population equality and the like. But when you get there, there's a list of state level maps that we created, and also now a US version. And you can access any of those. We did about 9 individual states, starting with New York, and also a nationwide version. If you can go to the next slide. So this is an example of the US version, which I'll give a quick demo of. I think we'll have a couple of minutes to do that. And so we wanted, again, to make it very easy for people to go to the map, just click on the map or type in an address. Number one, see what their current district was like. This is while redistricting was happening. They may not even know what their district boundaries look like. And then see what the various proposals looked like that were being, drawn for redistricting, to get an understanding of how their district might change and what that might mean for them. And we wanted to make it very easy. You can see at the top here, there's a slider tool that we have where you can move it left or right to see the old or the prior and the new districts. So you could easily visually see what the change would be and whether you like that or not. And if you wanted to get further involved, then you could. And then also some basic statistics, population characteristics, and the like, voting patterns about each of the districts. So you could very easily just quickly see what the maps look like and what they might mean for you. So you can go to the next slide. So this is the type of information that we included. Again, this type of comparison map, the audience we were thinking of was not people that were, kind of immersed in the redistricting process and involved in litigation and the like, that were doing all sorts of, thorough, detailed analysis. But this is again, a broader audience. So we just wanted to provide some basic information related to the different districts and to see what the patterns look like within each district. So we included some voting data from 2020, some basic redistricting metrics like compactness and the like, and then overall population characteristics, just to give people a sense of what redistricting might mean if those lines change. Go to the next page. So this, you could see on the left side of each map, we have what was then the current or now prior district lines. And then on the right side panel, we had information about how those numbers would change if the districts were put into effect. Next slide. And then also you can see patterns within the district, and I'll show an example of that when we go to the map. Go to the next slide. So this gives you a sense of what some of the basic race and ethnicity characteristics look like at the block group, the census tract level within each district and across the state. Next slide. And then that same type of information and somewhat more detailed, though, for 9 states in particular. And we included some additional information for some of them, like communities of interest or local political jurisdictions, so you can see how those jurisdictions might be impacted by the proposed changes. And again, these statewide maps included a whole bunch of different proposals that were being recommended by various entities, the official redistricting entity at the state, various stakeholders, members of the public. And so you could really get a sense of how these different maps would compare, which ones you like best, and therefore how you could use that information to advocate for one or the other. Go to the next slide. So this shows you an example of that. And actually go through the slides, and I'll share my screen and we could just do a quick demo. All right, so this is what the US version looks like. And you could either pick a state and then pick a district within that, or you could pick a state and look at the old maps, or you could just click on the map and it highlights in purple the district you've selected. That's the new district, and you can see this information in the right side panel about that district. And then if you move the slider to the left, you'll see what the old district looked like. And if you move it all over to the right, what the new one looked like. And so you can see visually, it's very compelling. TV journalists love this. They use this all the time in their broadcasts, that they could show very easily to the viewing audience what these mapping plans looked like and how they might change. And you could then also view the patterns within the district and across the state for race and ethnicity characteristics, and also at the time, the most current presidential election, I guess still until next year, the most current presidential results. Again, this is not the only metric that you want to use to understand redistricting, but again, for a broad audience, it gives you a sense of what the patterns are and how the lines might, what the change in lines might mean for each current district and what your district would look like. And for each state, let me show New York. So you could see the list of the various proposals that were being suggested and considered over the course of the redistricting process and what they looked like. So here's the state's unconstitutional plan that was proposed, and you can see what that looks like and all of the population characteristics about it. And then you could see how that plan changed in the final configuration, and as well how both of those compare with the old district lines. And so again, it's not a thorough, detailed statistical analysis, but it's a very powerful, visual, easy to use analysis that hopefully draws people in. And people were using this map when they were giving testimony for public hearings, The media used this all the time. Journalists would take screenshots of the map and include it in their articles. And it was the stakeholders that we worked with in each of the 9 states loved it. It was very helpful for them because it wasn't always easy, if they wanted to try to communicate what redistricting means to a large audience. It's a very visual thing. And the other tools that are available, like Dave's redistricting app, is really great, but not that helpful in terms of very easily showing what one district looks like compared with another. And that's exactly what this does. So they really appreciated that that tool. I saw a comment in the chat about Alabama. We did not do Alabama for a statewide version, but we do have obviously all of the states in the nationwide version, and we will be updating the map when the districts are finalized. The statewide versions allow us to include maps of all of the proposals or proposed plans. We actually were in the process right now of updating Louisiana. That was one of the states we did. And also New York probably will have new congressional district set of public hearings coming up. And so we'll be updating that as well, maybe Florida too. We only got funded to do certain states that were priority states of the fair redistricting representation of redistricting coalition. But once the districts are finalized, we'll update the national map, and you can see what those districts look like compared to the older districts that were in consideration. So that was kind of sort of a hop, skip, and a jump through the proposal. Hope that was, or through the maps. Hope that was helpful. And I'd be happy to chat further and share any, answer any questions afterwards.
Great. Thank you so much, Steven. I really appreciate your time today and sharing all your expertise on redistricting and you. As you mentioned, it is immensely helpful for many, many audiences. So thanks again. So I'd now like to introduce some features in another tool, Dave's Redistricting app, or DRA. The mission of DRA is to empower civic organizations and citizen activists to advocate for fair districts and increase transparency in the redistricting process. It allows you to draw community of interest maps, full legislative and congressional plans, and local redistricting plans. It also includes metrics for analyzing maps and enables you to import and export maps in several formats. So whether you are new to DRA or a Gold Star member, you would start by going to davesredistricting.org. And unless you are already logged in, you'll see 2 buttons at the top right of the website there. One to log in if you have an account, and one to sign up if you don't. If you don't have an account, I would recommend holding off on that for now, at least until after the training. It is very easy to create an account, but it would probably be a bit hard to catch back up with us since this is a short training. So once you've logged in, you'll see the home page, and I'll show you that in just a moment. You'll want to select or import the primary map to which you will compare to other maps. So you have many options here for picking your primary map. You could go to Maps and select from your existing list. You could go to Maps and select the Import button and upload a map. Or you could stay on the home page and select a state and then a currently enacted or notable map. So this is the home page. As I noted, I could select a state from this map, and then I could select a notable or enacted plan. Enacted plans are the official maps currently in place for each state. Notable maps are maps that are submitted by users that score the highest on some metric, such as competitiveness or compactness or others. Alternatively, I could click Maps in the top right-hand corner there, and then select from my existing list of maps. In this case, I am using a court-ordered map for the New York State Senate as my primary map to compare others to. If I had not already imported this map, I could also select that import button in the top right-hand corner and upload my map. You would actually click twice on the map to open it up. Again, if you're playing along at home, right? And once you have the map open and you can see the map, you're going to want to find the compare button and select the maps that you're going to compare your primary map with. The default option is notable maps, but you can select any published map by you or others. So here is my map that I opened up, my primary map, and you can see the compare button up there in the top right-hand corner. It's next to statistics and analyze. So you would go ahead and click that. And you'll see something that looks like this. Notice that the Pick Maps button in the top right-hand corner has Compare Notables checked by default. So if that's what you want and you want to compare notable maps, again, the maps that score the highest on particular metrics, such as compactness or minority representation, you don't need to click anything. You can just start scrolling down the page to see various metrics on how your map stacks up against the notable maps in DRA. But if you do want to select what maps to compare, then go ahead and click Pick Maps. Once you select Pick Maps, you'll see this dialog box. And in here, you can scroll through the published maps and select up to 5. There is a filter for what maps are available, including that they be maps for the same state, in my case, New York. They must also be the same plan type. So again, in my case, that's the state Senate. They must also be complete, meaning that all precincts are assigned, and contiguous, meaning that there's no sort of extra little holes or areas separate from particular districts. There's a few other minor but sensible restrictions on what maps show up here. Once you've selected your map, you can now compare them. And you'll see right at the top what's called a radar chart. It shows the scores of your map on each of 5 rating dimensions. So competitiveness, I've already mentioned, minority representation, compactness, splitting, and proportionality. And it'll show how your map stacks up to each of the maps that you selected in pairwise fashion. So if you selected 3 maps to compare to your primary map, then you'll get 4 of those charts. Unfortunately, we don't have time to dive into the analytics today. Perhaps that could be a future mapping snack. But for now, it's helpful to know that these metrics are all scored from 0 to 100, with higher scores being better. So this is what the radar charts should look like, roughly speaking. Again, depending on what map you've picked as your primary map and what maps you're comparing with, the radar charts will look different. And these are pairwise comparisons of your primary map with each of the maps that you selected in turn. You can see the C up here, if you can see my cursor, at the top for competitiveness, and going counterclockwise, we've got minority representation, C prime for compactness, S for splitting, and P for proportionality. And so the farther out you are getting to the end of the radar here, the better the map is scoring on that particular metric. If you keep scrolling down on that same page, you'll see a series of box plots that look like this. This compares your map to all possible maps in DRA. So all the notable maps, the enacted maps, and the published maps that met those criteria I mentioned earlier, being in the same state, the same plan type, and so on, are scored on these 5 dimensions, and then your primary map is plotted as a black dot in relation to that. So if you were to hover over the box plot for compactness, for example, as I've done here in this screenshot, you'll see the distribution of scores, of compactness scores for all maps. So here's my map, this little black dot here. So my map is pretty average in terms of compactness compared to other maps. It's sort of at the higher end for minority representation, but at the lower end for competitiveness. If you select only one map to compare, you will also see a table at the bottom comparing the population across those 2 maps, district by district. So if you selected 2 or more maps to compare to your primary map, you won't see this table. But if you select just one map, you will. And it will look something like this. You can see the demographics and partisanship of each district in your primary map in the main part of the table, and then what percentage of these districts come from the districts in the comparison map over on the right-hand side. Okay, you might be thinking that's a lot of great metrics and analysis, but what about a visual comparison? Can we get anything like that? So that is possible. It is a separate step, however. And to do this, you'll want to use what's called the custom overlay feature. So with your primary map pulled up, you would select the gear icon in the bottom left-hand corner. You can then select and import layers or maps. And this is actually an important distinction. Layers are static, unchanging images. It could be anything, really. It could be a community of interest map. It could be locations of prison facilities. It could be a full district plan. The key thing is that whatever you import as a layer is not going to change. In contrast, if you select a map to import, you'll see that you have nearly the same options as you did for layers, but in this case, the map will update if there is a change to that map. So for example, if you were to select a map from another user, and then the user made changes to that map, that is also going to update in your comparison map here as your custom overlay map here. If you imported it as a layer and the user made changes to their map, that would not update for you on your end. So again, if you're playing along at home and you happen to still be on the compare page there, just make sure you click on the map first to open it back up so that we're back on this page. Then you'll see the gear icon down in the bottom left for custom overlays. You'll select it and you'll get this dialog box. And here's where you can add layers or maps, as you can see at the bottom. In my example, I selected layers because I wanted to see whether the previous state Senate map, the prior to 2021 map, how that compared to the new map. And since it's a historical map and I don't expect it to change or want it to change, I wanted to import it as a layer. If you wanted to add more than one map to compare visually, you could just add additional custom overlays. There are some features you can change about how your custom overlay maps, in other words, your comparison maps, look. In particular, you can customize the outline, the color fill, the labels, and the landmarks. To do that, you simply click the little paint can next to your comparison map, and that will open up a different dialog box. And in there, I can make the district lines larger or smaller. I can add labels and do other things. Just to get a really quick sense of what this would look like, I've made the district's lines in my comparison map larger and red to really pop. I also zoomed into a particular area of interest in New York State, the Rochester area, just to see how things have changed. And so you can see some pretty major changes here between the post-2011 map and the post-2021 map. So in sum, DRA can help you compare any map, whether that be officially enacted plans or a community of interest map you've drawn. It enables comparison of multiple maps, which can be helpful if you have many competing map proposals. It also provides detailed analytics. And although it is a separate step and does not allow you to enter an address and easily find your district, as Redistricting You does, you can do some visual comparison of maps by way of the custom overlays feature. So before we wrap up here today, I want to note where you can find maps. So as Steven noted, Redistricting You has all the post-2010 and post-2020 maps. We'll continue to add new maps as they are enacted. If you wanted to download a map in order to import it into DRA, you can get maps. Well, there's of course many maps in DRA itself. The Redistricting Data Hub also has maps and is continuing to upload newly enacted plans as those come into effect as well. Plan Score, if you're not familiar with them, and I can pop the link in the chat if anybody's interested, also has a number of maps from this past cycle. Many states still have their redistricting websites live and store proposed and alternative maps on the website. So Ohio would be a very topical example right now, but they have a website where you can obtain a number of their maps. And of course, you can always reach out to the Redistricting Data Hub for help tracking down a map through our help desk at help@redistrictingdatahub.org. Just briefly here, I can tell you quickly, we did a couple weeks ago get a question about an old map from Florida and let's see, they were looking for a pre-2011 Florida map that was a particular gerrymander, and they were having trouble finding it. And we were able to track down a website where an individual in Florida had actually retained these maps. They were not available for download, but there was at least static images available on the website. So again, that's really just to reiterate that if you're looking for a map, hopefully we can help you find it. So before we jump into the questions part of today, I just want to say thank you again for coming. I'm beyond pleased to have had Steven here to talk about Redistricting and You. It really is just a fabulous tool, and nobody knows it better than he does. Of course, if you have ideas for future mapping snacks, we'd love to hear them. The goal of these trainings is, as you can see, to keep them very short. You get a quick little snack of what you can do with some of these wonderful free mapping tools, and then you get back to your day. So we will continue to host additional trainings along this theme, and we'd love to hear if you have any particular requests or ideas for those kinds of trainings. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here. If I can find